There's shares of Facebook dropping sharply after hours, the stock weighed down by new growth concerns. Facebook CFO just addressed it on the call. Listen.
We expect our year-over-year total reported revenue growth rate in Q1 to decelerate by a low to mid-single-digit percentage point as compared to our Q4 growth rate. Factors driving this deceleration include the maturity of our business, as well as the increasing impact from global privacy regulation and other ad targeting related headwinds. While we have experienced some modest impact from these headwinds to date, the majority of the impact lies in front of us.
Well, let's get reaction now from one of Facebook's first investors. Roger McNamee is co-founder of Elevation Partners. Good to see you in person here. Thanks for coming by.
Good to be back with the team here.
Just from hearing what they just said on the call, that can't make you that optimistic about this thing turning around.
Well, if you look at it as an investor, which is certainly one of the hats that I wear, I'm not a trader. So like you guys, my time horizon is much, much longer. This is a very inexpensive stock for what you get. But I believe they face structural problems that they cannot fix. And it's not just in the U.S. In Europe, in Asia, the pressure to regulate is really intense because tech, I think, is today where chemicals were in 1960, when people realized that pouring mercury into fresh water was just not a good idea. Where the pharmaceutical industry was in 1900 when fake patent medicines were killing people. At some point, these industries are so strategic that you have to regulate them in order to protect them and everybody in the country. And I think that's where tech is today.
Well, can you view that independently then? You could say, okay, regulation's coming, but stock's cheap.
No,
so
I think that's it. If you're an investor, what I think you have to look at is what does regulation look like. In the United States, it matters a lot what happens in the election in November. Outside the U.S., this is going to happen anyway, and it's a global business, and they try to automate everything. So whoever has the toughest regulation is going to drive the behavior globally, and that's going to be Europe, at least for the next few years. I think you also have to watch out for state regulation, which is likely to be, state attorneys general are going after Facebook over privacy issues, probably eventually over antitrust issues as well. And they've got a really good case. These guys have had a free market ride for a long time, and they've run over every competitor. And it's a very easy case for these guys to make.
It's inevitable that there's going to be misinformation on Facebook in the election cycle, right? They can't stop it. How can they stop it?
Actually, they could stop it.
How?
The problem is the business model. There's nothing wrong with the technology itself, but the business model is based on your attention. In order to get it, they use what is called algorithmic amplification. They look for the content that engages you, gets you to spend the most time, do the most stuff. And for the vast majority of people, that's going to be stuff that provokes outrage or fear, which is hate speech, disinformation, and conspiracy theories. And the problem is that the algorithms amplify that stuff, so it spreads like crazy. And none of that is necessary to have Facebook be a viable business, but it is the thing that has given it a $750 billion market.
Let me rephrase my question. Facebook currently constructed, there's no way to stop it.
They can't. You have to change the business model, which is why investors have to be careful when you're saying it's cheap. If the decision is made that we're not going to have disinformation and political campaigns, they're going to have to do some very drastic things to the business model.
So let's talk about the business model. In terms of expenses compared to revenues, what percentage of revenues are now going to be fighting this battle that you're talking about?
It depends on how you go about it. Right now, they've been trying to do it with moderation, which is a combination of artificial intelligence and human beings. That is not going to work. The math is just, the thing's too big, and it happens after the stuff goes out. You would have to review everything before it went live on the network, which they're never going to do. I think you're going to see the regulation aiming increasingly towards changing the business model at its core, which is going to be catastrophic for profitability.
So, Roger, one of the bull cases for Facebook is they were going to create a super app. They were going to combine all their apps together, and it was going to be something like we see overseas. Is that still on the table, or do they no longer do that?
That's a really great question. They're clearly still trying to do it. And I think if you're an investor and a betting person, you're looking at this and assuming that they're going to attempt to do their plan, irrespective of the pushback from politicians. So the real test is whether political systems anywhere in the world have enough leverage to cause change to happen. Right now, they're basically being nibbled to death by ducks. And the question is, does anybody get to bring a hammer to a duck party? And I don't know what the
Let me ask you one question unrelated to Facebook, but related to tech before you go. Are you surprised at how Microsoft has been able to transform itself from what seemed like a old tech has-been, if you will, to this new tech cloud player and the job that Satya Nadella has done, given your presence in the Valley and elsewhere?
They have done two things that really impressed me. The first thing was they were a late entrant into surveillance capitalism. They followed the Google playbook to the T, right? And so they're doing a lot of the same things Google's doing with many of the same problems. Like they've had a lot of problems in their artificial intelligence. They've had issues relative to data usage, but they've had brilliant public relations, and they really understand the importance of staying on the good side of governments. So I think Microsoft as a stock looks really good compared to these other guys because, you know, it's like the two guys in the woods when the bear shows up. You don't have to outrun the bear, you have to outrun the other guy. And they're so far ahead of Google and Facebook and even Amazon that I think Microsoft probably is still in great shape here.
Are you an owner of shares?
I am not an owner of shares, regretfully.
All right. Good to see you. Thanks again for being here.
Fun to be with you guys. Thanks for letting me go long term on you. I know that's not
no, it's all good.
That's not the culture here.
That's Elevation's Roger McNamee. We like smart cultures, and that's what you bring.
And my book is coming out in paperback next
week.
week.
Whoa. What's the name of the book?
It's called Zucked, Waking Up to the Facebook Catastrophe. 4 new chapters, a lot of new information. I hope people will check it out because this is the issue of our time. We can't solve climate change. We can't solve gun violence or anti-vax if we can't do something about what internet platforms do on this algorithmic amplification.
All right. We'll see you again soon.
Take care.
All right. That's Roger McNamee. All right. Let's trade it.
Well,
you trade Facebook or Microsoft.
Real quick,
frankly.
Facebook was a $125 stock on Christmas Eve of 2019. Just traded $225. Again, I say this level is an important level. However, if you're in BK's camp, and I think Roger's camp as well, the 50% retracement of that move is 175. On this tape, given what everybody just said, that's not an unreasonable level to buy the stock.